It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Well, hi there, everybody. It is Rico Brogna Drive Home Edition. A drive home edition of Rico as the New York Mets defeat the Minnesota Twins 2-0. But it's also a reaction to the trade deadline, which featured a flurry of moves. How are you, sir? Some of which you may not be proud of. That guy is pointing at me awkwardly. I don't know what to say. Am I supposed to roll down the window and say what's up? But yes, I see you. A reaction to the trade deadline, which have featured a flurry of moves, some of which you guys are not excited about. But a New York Met victory, a dominant pitching performance by Sean Manaea, a gutsy decision, a few of them by Carlos Mendoza, including giving Ryan Stanek an opportunity with a 2-run lead. And then, of course, Edwin Diaz being called upon for the 4-out save. Let's talk a little bit about this game, and then we'll get into the trade deadline. My thoughts. I am pretty positive about what the Mets did at the deadline. I can't tell if I'm in the minority. It kind of feels like I am. Feels like most Met fans wanted something splashy, something sexy. And I'll tell you why you're all wrong. I respect you, but while you're wrong. But let's get to this game. Let's start with Sean Manaea. That was utter brilliance. You know, Sean Manaea has been at times a frustrating figure for us. But overall, he's had a great year. And one of the positives about him is that he goes out and takes the ball every 5 days. What we have seen every once in a while, and we saw it tonight against a Minnesota lineup that came into this series scoring, I think, pretty much the same amount of runs as the Mets. We saw dominance from him. 11 strikeouts, only 1 walk, 2 measly base hits. Like, the Twins didn't put a lot of pressure on him. I think that was that one stolen base where they had a runner in scoring position. But outside of that, we saw a completely filthy Sean Manaea. I was playing the game of how much does Mendy push him. You know, he was at 84 pitches after 6 innings, and considering how conservative they've been sometimes with Sean, I wasn't positive he was going to come out for the 7th inning. He does. He pitches a great 1-2-3 inning. His pitch count's at 96. I think at that point, nursing a 2-0 lead, I kind of lean towards what Mendy did, which is I'm going to take him out. I got the best of Sean Manaea. I'm going to quit while I'm ahead, and let me see if I can get multiple outs before I go to Edwin Diaz. You knew with an off day on Thursday, with the fact that Diaz hasn't pitched in a while, what you're really asking for this bullpen to do with a 2-run lead is just get an out or 2. Now, probably 2. I don't think you want 5 outs from Diaz, but you're not even asking for the full 3 outs. I think you see it with the bottom of the order coming up. Look, if this gets to Byron Buxton in the 2-hole, or even if this gets to Manuel Margot, who may as well be, Barry Bonds when he faces the Mets, then you go to Edwin Diaz. As far as going to Ryan Stanek is concerned, I had a good vibe. I went to this game. I walked in about 10 minutes before first pitch because we got off early. And here was the vibe I got. I ran into – are you telling me to go, sir? Can I go? Yes, thank you. All right. Sorry. I try to follow what the security guys tell me, and he was giving me that hand motion like I don't know what he was doing. Like he was confused. But, yes, I'm going. And now I'm out of the parking lot at Citi Field, and I'm on my way. There was a decent amount of people there. I'm not sure what kind of crowd they announced. Hoff, you could fill us in at some point, but it seemed like a decent crowd for a Tuesday night. People want their $5 hot dogs. But anyhow, I ran into Ryan Stanek like 10 minutes before the game. Now, I didn't bother him. I didn't say anything to him. He had his young child with him. But I looked at him and I was like, all right, let me give some positive vibes to Ryan Stanek. I'm not going to say, hey, Ryan, don't look like Saturday. That was a freaking disaster. Or Sunday, whatever day he pitched. I wasn't going to give him that. But I gave him a glance, and he looked so happy with his family. And I felt decent about it when Ryan Stanek, with his beautiful, luscious blonde hair, came into this game. But here's the truth when Ryan Stanek was given that opportunity. There was a lot on the line for all of us mentally. We are going to get into the trade deadline, and I'm going to tell you why I personally liked what they did, and I'm not disappointed that they didn't trade a boatload of prospects for Tanner Scott. But there are a lot of Met fans out there. We will get a lot to your emails on tomorrow's Rico. I'm driving. I can't read emails. But a lot of people were disappointed by what they didn't do. And so my point here is if Ryan Stanek had imploded, and he did not, Pete Alonso made a brutal error, and Ryan Stanek can't walk the 9th place hitter, but he wasn't bad. He didn't implode. He got 2 big outs, and I thought overall was pretty good despite the Pete error. But if Stanek implodes the way many of us feared when he came into this game, the talking point, whether it's on the Rico, whether it's on FAN tomorrow, whether it's on social media, would be more about, you see, David Stearns is an idiot. Can you believe it? He gives us Ryan Stanek. What a douche. I think our mentality and our conversations, right or wrong, was going to hinge on how he pitched in that eighth inning. I'm telling you, he gets bombed in that eighth inning, and the Mets blow it. The vitriol that was going to come out, may still anyway, but more so on David Stearns, was going to be through the roof. So I thought Stanek, and I said this to my buddy tonight, was not only pitching for the victory, not only pitching for the circle of trust possibilities with Carlos Mendoza, but I think he was also pitching for what the talking point around Metland's going to be after this game. I was nervous, I think, as we all were, but I give him a lot of credit because after Pete makes that brutal error, and for whatever reason, Pete's been a disaster with the spring training play. I think overall, like, he's an average defensive first baseman. I've always said that. I think he's very good on bad throws, scoops to first base. I think overall he's an okay defensive player, but man, those spring training plays have killed him this year. Those flips to first base with the pitcher covering, he's had a few disasters like that. And it was just a bad moment. You know, Ryan Stanek's a human being. Granted, he's been in the playoffs a lot. He's pitched in a lot of high leverage situations. You know, he can feel the angst of the Citi Field crowd, I would assume. And Pete did him no favors by that blunder. But Stanek, to his credit, got the fly out. He did issue the walk. He got the big out on Manuel Margot. Or no, I think Margot got pinch hit for with Larnach. I don't have my scorecard in front of me, but yeah, I think they went to Larnach to pinch hit for him. But he showed a lot of poise getting that second out. And then I thought it was immediate once I saw Diaz warming up and then thinking about circumstances. Of course you go to Edwin Diaz. Why not? I wouldn't go to him for a 6-out save. I think that's asking for way too much. But to go get one of Minnesota's best hitters in Byron Buxton as the lead run with 2 outs in the 8th inning, I got no problem with it. And that was the other real positive, Edwin Diaz. Look, Edwin has had his shaky moments. I don't know if he has fully earned back all of our trust from the way we felt 2 years ago, but he's been a lot better. And I think what he did today was one of his more impressive performances of the season. You're asking for a 4-out save. You're coming in with guys on base. You're facing a really dangerous hitter in Buxton, and you got him out. And then after sitting for a few minutes, you proceed to give us a nice, easy, pressureless 1-2-3 inning in the bottom of the inning. That was huge. So this bullpen, which is the big question, at least one of the new guys did fairly well, and one of the guys they need to be great did really well in Edwin Diaz. Obviously, the team didn't hit very much. They took advantage of that balk and wild pitch after a Brandon Nimmo walk. J.D. Martinez, who's been very quiet, comes through with a big RBI single. Kudos to him. Mark Vientos hits a home run, which is great to see. Outside of that, they didn't do anything. They didn't do much offensively, but they back up what was spectacular starting pitching. You know, this pitching staff has been average. That's just what the numbers tell you. I mean, it has been. But because the expectations were so low for this pitching staff, you know, some thought this was going to be like the worst staff ever. It feels like it's been great, and it's a strength. It's not a strength, but it certainly has been a lot better than we thought. And Sean Manaea has been real solid this season. You know, you look at Manaea through the 21 starts he's made or 20 starts he's made. He's had some duds. You know, he had one 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, whenever it was against Miami, coming out of the break. But he has mixed in some brilliant performances, and certainly tonight was one of them. So overall, real good victory. I feel a lot better. You know, I talked about this a lot on the fan on Monday. I'm not irrational. Sometimes I may feel a little irrational, but I was concerned coming out of the Atlanta series. And I wasn't concerned because of our friend Sal Licata tweeting something humorous. It was not his fault, as I said to him. I was concerned about the way things felt over those 2 days after Kodai Senga went down, and how lifeless they were offensively against a Brave team that they had a chance to really kick while down. But to the Mets' credit, against a good opponent, the Twins are a good opponent as much as New York teams always beat them, in this ballpark where the Mets have been average all year, they have responded. A huge offensive performance on Monday, a brilliant starting pitching performance on Tuesday, and now, look, I want to sweep the Minnesota Twins, but the bottom line is they have had a successful kind of return to New York. The 2 wins against the Yankees. The split against Atlanta wasn't great after you win the first 2, but certainly wasn't a disaster. And now to win a series against the Minnesota Twins. Hopefully it's a sweep. We'll see with Severino on the mound on a Thursday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon with rain in the forecast. The Mets are playing reasonably well. And that's important because of this road trip they have coming up which really is daunting because of the geography more so than the opponent. So nice victory. Now let's get to this trade deadline. Look, I believe that the New York Mets, like any team that makes the postseason, has a shot. Okay? You make the playoffs, you got a shot to be the Arizona Diamondbacks or the Philadelphia Phillies or the Texas Rangers and get hot at the right time, and you can win. The New York Mets, while it certainly won't be the favorites, have a chance, if they can make the postseason, to go on a deep playoff run. With that said, this is not an elite team. This is not a great team. This is not a team that, even though they are making up ground on the Phillies, this is still not a team I don't think any of us really think is going to come back and win the National League East. So they are likely, if they're going to make the playoffs, to be in this wild card round. They are also a team that's doing this with average starting pitching. They have a very good lineup. They have bullpen that features a lot of questions. But this was always a transition-y kind of year. Now, I thought they could be a playoff team. They certainly have a chance. But a very transition-y kind of season. This is not the year. I'm sorry. I apologize for everyone who's going to be pissed off about this. I spent all day talking about it on the fan. This was not the year to make stupid, all-in, aggressive trades. It's not for the guys that were out there. Look, Tariq Skubal wasn't traded. Okay? He wasn't traded. So to use him as an example, sorry, he wasn't available. Garrett Crochet was not traded. We can't use him as an example. Blake Snell was not traded. So if we're going to have a fair discussion about the trade deadline, we have to talk about who was traded and who you're mad they didn't get. So my fellow Met fan, are you mad they didn't get Jason Adam? Are you mad that they didn't trade top prospects for Jason Adam? Are you mad they didn't trade top prospects for Tanner Scott, a free agent to be at the end of the season? Are you? Are you mad they didn't trade 3 players, which the Astros did, one of which was the feature of a hypothetical Pete Alonso trade last month in our email for Yusei Kikuchi? Are you mad about that? The Jack Flaherty trade I got to look deeper into to see what the Dodgers gave up. Sure, he would have been a nice addition. But are you mad, honestly, that the Mets didn't take their farm system, which is growing, and trade them for guys that are costing an arm and a leg, who, by the way, are not that good? Jack Flaherty's had a nice year. I would have liked him, but the guy sucked last year. The guy was traded to the Orioles at the trade deadline. How did he do? He's had one good year in the last 4 years. And really, we're mad they didn't trade top prospects for Jack Flaherty? We're mad they didn't trade top prospects for Tanner Scott, a free agent at the end of the year who's having a career season? Look, I would have liked those guys. Would they have improved the New York Mets? Sure. But do you really want to do it at the cost of top-line prospects? And before you criticize, you're prospect hugging, it's not as if every prospect the Mets have has to be developed. You may trade them during the offseason. Forget this. Better players. This was a seller's market. Those young pieces that you may have used for Tanner Scott may be a part of an even better trade during the offseason. So I didn't like what was out there, especially when I saw what the prices were. And I'm not mad at David Stearns for not doing something stupid to appease some of us. Now, as far as what they did, I'm not going to put Huascar Braziban in the Hall of Fame, but has he pitched well for the Marlins this season? He has. I'm not going to put Ryan Stanek in the Hall of Fame, but does he have oodles of postseason experience? And is he 2 years removed from a dominant year out of the bullpen? Yeah. I'm not going to put Phil Maton in the Hall of Fame, but is Phil Maton a major leaguer who's better than a lot of the bullpen options the Mets have had all season? Yeah. Is Jesse Winker a major upgrade over DJ Stewart? Yeah. Is Paul Blackburn at least an upgrade over Tyler McGill? Probably. So what the Mets did in giving up nothing, in giving up a 22nd ranked prospect, a 27th ranked prospect, a 23rd ranked prospect, is they got better. Did they get better in a sexy way? No. Did they get better in a, hey, I know who that guy is, I watched him dominate my team last week way? No. But the Mets got better on the margins, and they did it in giving up nothing. And here's what I love about what they did. My dad has always had this opinion, old school baseball fan, and he's always felt this way about bullpen arms. Other than the dominant closer, dude, from year to year, you never know what you're going to get. He was always a believer. Who is that lefty who drank beers who we let go to Anaheim? I forget his name already. Remember the lefty reliever who drank Busch beer and signed with the Angels after he had like a 105 ERA? Chunky lefty. What was his name again, Hoff?
Not Randa.
No. I apologize. My brain is frozen as I sit here on the White Stone Bridge. Yeah, the White Stone Bridge. I apologize. I'm sure we'll get a lot of angry emails about it. The lefty who signed with the Angels after he had one dominant season, I think in 2021. My point is, my dad, I remember saying to me, you can't re-sign him. He's going to suck next year. That's what relievers do. So what the Mets did was they bought lottery tickets. I admit that. I don't know how good Brazaban's going to be. I don't know how good Static's going to be, Maton, the whole thing. They bought lottery tickets for 50 cents. That's what they did. And I'm going to tell you something right now, Met fans. There is a good chance that one of the 3 lottery tickets they bought will outpitch Jason Adam for the next 2 months. Now, we'll see. Maybe Jason Adams is going to pitch to an 0.8 ERA, but there's a decent chance that one of the relievers that you're crapping on because maybe he's not as sexy as the others will actually be really good. Now, I also admit there's a really good chance that one of these guys will suck and we will boo them out of the ballpark. They're lottery tickets. But the New York Mets, and this is what I appreciate about David Stearns, in a year in which, yeah, the Mets are fun. Yeah, the Mets are decent. Yeah, the Mets have a chance to go crazy in the playoffs because everybody does if you make it. They decided to be smart. They decided to improve themselves on the margins without being stupid. I commend David Stearns. I do. I didn't want to give up huge prospects for Tanner Scott. And look, Blake Snell, Tariq Skubal, again, they weren't traded. So we're going to whine about guys that never were really made available? They may trade for Tariq Skubal during the offseason. By the way, wouldn't rule it out. And he wasn't traded now. So I'm not saying, Pete, this was an A-plus off trade deadline. Oh, my God, we're going to win the World Series. I'm saying it was smart. They tried to get better. They bought a bunch of reliever lottery tickets, and they gave up nothing to get it. I'm happy today as a Met fan.
Well, first of all, congratulations to you. Also, Aaron Loop is the pitcher, so let's get that out of the way because we would have gotten murdered. On top of that, I don't disagree with you. I can't. I think that they did a really good job. Obviously, I had other ideas of what, maybe, Jesse Winker's a nice piece. The offense has been clicking, but there are some days that I still feel like you could always use one more bat. You could always have an upgrade, whatever it is, what it is. But, dude, I forget how to pronounce his last name. Brazaban. Dude, he's a freaking stud. Like, that's a legit move that is going to help us in the next couple of years. And he's a flamethrower, and that's good.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I don't know if I would go with stud, but what I would go with, Pete, is that he's pitched well for the Marlins this season, and it cost the Mets nothing. And look, this was never going to be a sexy trade deadline because there was no real ace available. Let's just start with that. Like, yeah, of course, the Mets could use that lockdown ace for the next few years. Everybody can. But Blake Snell was never seriously available. I think that's clear based on what San Francisco did at the trade deadline. I think Detroit was probably testing the waters on a future Tariq Skubal trade. Like, I think he's going to be traded during the offseason. I don't think they're going to end. They ended up not doing it now. So, yes, I would have loved an ace. I never thought it was a realistic option. This was always about add a depth starter and add bullpen help. And those guys are not big names. So I know that, yeah, it just was never going to be sexy. So if you're going to add lottery ticket bullpen arms, you do it at a cost that's not crazy. Now, I will say there were 2 relievers that got moved that I'm disappointed about because it doesn't look like a lot was given up for them. Those 2 guys are Andrew Chafin, who went to the Texas Rangers, a lefty we've talked about for a while. And the other one is Dylan Floro, a guy I've also mentioned that I wanted them to target along with Jesse Winker. It appears that the Diamondbacks gave up a guy that I'm trying to remember, like they claimed the guy recently and they gave him up for Dylan Floro. So it doesn't feel like Arizona gave up a lot for Floro. So those are the 2 relievers. If we're going to be specific about, hey, I would have done this, hey, that would have been nice. Those are the 2 guys that jump out at me. But I also think, keep this in mind, and I'm not saying they're going to do this right away. I don't think they will. I think Tyler McGill can become a bullpen option now. I do. I think Paul Blackburn should take a spot in the rotation. And I think now you start eyeing McGill and say, hey, could he be a lottery ticket out of the bullpen? I also think Jose Butto clearly remains in the bullpen because of the Blackburn trade. Obviously, Blackburn gets hurt. There's another injury in the rotation. We'll have to adjust to that. Then maybe it is Jose Butto. Maybe it is Tyler McGill back. Or maybe it's Brandon Sprout, who I think has to be a factor right now. I think the Mets, and look, I haven't watched him at AA, but he's put up some big numbers. I think that looking at the effectiveness of Skeens, not that he's Paul Skeens, but maybe he can make the jump from AA and be a factor down the stretch. So those are the two guys at the deadline that I looked at and said, hey, those would have been nice additions, Chafin and Dylan Floro. But overall, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm going to get hammered by a lot of Met fans. I'm not going to say I love what they did because I admit that they're lottery tickets, but I like what they did. I thought they were smart additions, and it didn't cost them a lot, and it keeps them on their trajectory, not to develop every prospect, to maybe use some of those prospects in different trades next offseason and maybe at next year's trade deadline.
Evan, one thing, you just said something which is very interesting, going to the minors to see if you have something that sticks. What's the difference? And I'm being serious. What's the difference of having Tyler McGill pitch a game or having someone come up from the minors? I mean, because you're basically throwing the game away anyway. So if you can find something that sticks, you might as well do it.
Yeah, I think with a guy like Sprout, who probably jumps out at all of us because of how dominant he's been, I don't think it's about the game at the major league level. It's more about the development of a young player. Like, does it hurt his development if you, quote-unquote, rush a guy? We've learned a lot about David Stearns. One of the things you pointed out initially, so I give you credit, that he will DFA a guy on a moment's notice, that he will make a roster move. I mean, look, he DFA'd Jake Diekman, and I got a weird feeling. I'm not listening to the post game. We're doing this live after the Met game. I think Adam Ottavino's not long for this world. I would not be surprised if he's one of the DFAs upon some of the newer additions that the Mets just brought in. So he's clearly shown you he's not afraid to send a guy down. He's not afraid to DFA a guy. He's not afraid to improve a roster on the margins, whether it's adding a catcher like Luis Torrens, whether it's all the bullpen changes, whatever it is. The other thing that I think we learned with him, with Christian Scott, is that he's not afraid to call up a young player. Billy Epler was. And I think that he showed us with Scott, because I remember being surprised how quickly it was that they called him up. That's why I mentioned Sprout's name, because, I don't know, maybe David Stearns would do it. Maybe he'd say, you know what, we think this kid's electric. We think this kid is ready. Let's just call him up and let's see what he's got. But I think for now, I would, Blackburn should be in the rotation. I would experiment with McGill out of the bullpen, and let's see what these new guys got. Let's see if a new location sparks Ryan Stanek. I, again, didn't think he was bad tonight. Phil Maton has pitched well. We'll find out about Huascar Brazoban once he's here, making his debut. They also made that other trade for the Tampa reliever. I think he was pitching for the Ducks this year, Zubar. We'll do more on this tomorrow when the series is over. We'll do a recap of the Minnesota series and obviously go closer on the deadline. But overall, as I'm driving home after a Met win, I feel good about what they did at the trade deadline. And I have a feeling that even the Met fan who's disappointed because they wanted the bigger name, I think you guys are going to come around over the next 24 hours. I think when you give it thought, when you think about the cost that it was going to take for Tanner Stott and Jason Adam, I think most Met fans will realize, you know what? It wasn't quote-unquote all in. It wasn't sexy, but they improved themselves on the margins, and they did it without sinking major prospects. I think most Met fans will come around, and now we just got to hope it works. I mean, I'm not sitting here guaranteeing it's all going to work out. I'm hopeful. They've clearly changed this bullpen a lot. We asked for changes. He gave us changes. I mean, there's no denying that. So I'm feeling good, Pete. I'm feeling good right now.
Well, you should be feeling good because guess what? We won another freaking series. I mean, how about that? I mean, we still got we got the game tomorrow, but still, like, I just feel good that we came in here after losing 2 games in a row to Atlanta, that we were able to, listen, the trade deadline, I felt happy with it. Like, I wasn't like, oh, damn, that sucks. But then to come out and win a game like this again, Mark Vientos still is a stud. Like, that guy just has not stopped hitting since he's been up here. This is so frustrating, the fact that he wasn't even on the team last year, or they gave him no real opportunity. It's just, whether it was Buck, whether it was Epler, who cares? This is what David Stearns, like you said, he's going to bring up people that he thinks can do it. And thank God that he brought Mark Vientos here, because who knows where the Mets would be without him.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk myself into the Vientos thing, that maybe it all worked out in this regard. As much as I wanted him to be on the major league roster right out of spring training, and they didn't do it, as much as I wanted him to be called up earlier or stay up here after he got the game-winning home run against St. Louis, I wonder, and I don't know if Mark Vientos could tell us this, if all of that served as the right and perfect motivation and the perfect kind of extra development to get him to this level. Like, if he did make the team out of spring training the way I wanted, does he not produce like this? Did he almost need a little bit more, kick in the groins to kind of take him to that level? I don't know if it's true. Obviously, I think most of us thought it didn't make any sense, but he's here now, and he's been incredibly productive. He has not slowed down. His defense has been a lot better than I think we imagined, and Mark Vientos has been a big part of why the Mets are here, where they are, playing good baseball and responding. And yes, I agree with you. I was a little worried after what happened against Atlanta. This was a great response by winning these two games against a good Minnesota team, and hopefully they'll finish the job on Wednesday afternoon. We will give you a Rico series recapping Rico Brogna like we always do at some point Wednesday evening after the Mets take on the Minnesota Twins. We'll also go a little bit deeper into your trade reaction to the deadline. We'll read some of your emails, and we'll get you set for the upcoming long-ass West Coast trip, because that's what it is. A long-ass trip that features Anaheim, a game in St. Louis, a bunch of games in Colorado, and a bunch of games in Seattle that includes a Sunday nighter to wrap it up. So we got a lot of Ricos coming your way, but this has been a drive home Mets win trade deadline reaction edition of Rico Brogna. Thank you for listening, and thank you subscribing. I'm doing a big SNY Sweet Day on Wednesday afternoon, so we will not be on the air Wednesday. BT and Sal will fill in for us, which we appreciate, after the Yankee game, and I'll be back on the air Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock. But definitely take a look at a Wednesday Night Rico coming up after this Twin Series. Thank you very much for listening to Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.